Hello there. It's time for another mini tutorial from Snuggles Quilts. This is about blocks that are, or units that are made from what is called folded corners or flip and sew corners. So you're going to have a larger square and then a smaller square. And what I do is I make sure it's lined up nice and neatly. And you can either draw a line diagonally on the back of the square, or you can use lines that are already on your sewing machine. So once you have it lined up really nicely like that, you're going to take a pin. Sometimes people don't do this, but I think it's a good idea to take a pin and pin it in place. And then you check on the other side. You can't see anything of the small square, so you know that it's lined up well. The pin keeps it from shifting as you stitch that diagonal line. So once you stitch that diagonal line, you remove the pin, and here's my one that's already stitched. Now you're going to have all of this excess fabric in the back once you flip over this piece to make your corners. So what you want to do before you cut this off, you want to make sure that you've done the seam well enough so that it flips over and fits perfectly into the square. Now it's okay if you have just a tiny bit of where it looks like it's a little off a little bit, because it can be fudged a little bit when you're stitching some blocks together or stitching these units together. But you wouldn't want your unit to, say, look like this when you got done stitching, because then you would know that your seam line was way off and that your unit would measure very, very non-square. You know, this is a 4.5 inch square, and if you had it, if your unit was like this, and then you sewed around and had other ones that were off, you might not obviously get a square that was 4.5 inches square. So once you know that it is measuring correctly, then you can take your fabric scissors. You could also do it with a rotary cutter. I just eyeball it with the scissors, and I cut it off, leaving about a 1/4 inch seam, just like you would if you had been sewing you know, a triangle to a square that had a diagonal seam or a diagonal cut in it. And then you can go ahead, flip it over, and as we saw in our tutorial from last week, you just press, and you don't iron, you just press it. And then I flip it over and give it another press. And then you have a really nice flip and sew corner. So I hope you learned something from this tutorial. Come back again soon. Bye.